Lily shifted slightly in her seat, trying to focus on the voice of the judge as he scribbled notes, but her mind was racing. Everything her dad was saying sounded so convincing, even though she knew it wasn't true. The scariest part was that the people in the courtroom, strangers in suits, were listening to him like he was telling the truth. Shadow's warm presence helped her stay grounded. She could feel his chest rising and falling calmly. His closeness helped her remember the hand signal, the secret they'd practiced with her therapist. If she ever felt unsafe or overwhelmed, if things became too much, she could give Shadow the sign. It was never meant to be used here, but this moment didn't feel safe anymore. Greg, would you say Sarah has shown signs of being unfit as a mother? The attorney asked from behind his polished desk. Greg tilted his head slightly, like he was thinking deeply. Look, I don't want to speak badly about her, but yes, she's emotional, unpredictable. There were nights Lily called me crying because she didn't understand her mother's behavior. That's a lie. Sarah snapped before covering her mouth. The judge gave her a warning glance, and she sat back down, breathing hard. Lily looked around. No one was standing up for her mom. No one was saying what it was like when her dad lost his temper, how he could smile sweetly in public but break dishes and punch walls behind closed doors. No one mentioned how Lily had started sleeping with her. Door locked. She didn't understand why everyone believed the man who scared her most. She reached for Shadow's ear and gave it a gentle tug, just the way she always did when she needed reassurance. Shadow turned his head and met her eyes. She gave the signal again, this time a little more firmly. 2 fingers, curled into a C, tapped lightly against her leg. Shadow didn't move much, but his body went still, ears standing tall, eyes locked. Straight ahead, he was waiting, watching, alert. A bailiff noticed the dog's change in posture and whispered something to the clerk near the judge. The judge glanced at the dog but didn't comment. Sarah's lawyer stood up. Your Honor, I request permission to submit medical records from Lily's pediatrician and therapy notes that may contradict Mr. Harper's claims. Greg interrupted before the judge could answer. Therapists always take the mother's side. It's biased from the beginning. She even had the dog trained to read Lily's emotions. How convenient is that? He's a service dog, Sarah replied, her voice shaking. Not a toy. And he's saved Lily from 3 panic attacks since you left. The judge raised a hand. Enough, I'll review the documents. Mr. Harper, please refrain from interrupting. Greg leaned back and smirked at Sarah. It was a smirk Lily had seen 100 times. The one he gave right before yelling started. That's when Lily couldn't hold back anymore. Her body tensed. Her breathing became shallow. She was moments away from spiraling, so she did it. She placed her 2 fingers in the shape of a C over her chest, higher than before, right where everyone could see. Shadow stood up, slowly, intentionally. His body was calm, but something in the room shifted. He didn't bark or lunge, but he stepped forward, not toward Lily's mom, but toward Greg. Greg's face froze. He didn't move. Neither did Shadow. The courtroom became dead quiet. Even the judge looked stunned. Is everything all right with the dog? The bailiff asked carefully, already stepping closer. Sarah's attorney quickly said, Your Honor, the dog is responding to a distress signal. He's trained for this. Greg stood abruptly. That's ridiculous. This is some kind of showsome drama to make me look bad. But no one was laughing. No one was relaxed anymore. All eyes were on the dog. And the girl who had just silently told him she didn't feel safe. Shadow's eyes were locked on Greg, body still. Stance firm, tail low, but alert. It wasn't an aggressive pose, but anyone who had ever owned a dog could tell. This was a warning, a silent one, a response to something unseen. The judge leaned slightly forward in his chair. Can someone explain what's going on with the dog? Sarah's lawyer cleared his throat. Your Honor, this dog Shadow is a certified psychiatric service animal. He's trained to detect elevated anxiety levels and specific distress signals from the child. That was one of them, the courtroom whispered. Even the bailiff stiffened. Greg chuckled nervously. That's just training. It doesn't prove anything. She could have trained him to do that on command. But the judge didn't smile. He looked over the rim of his glasses. Mr. Harper, the dog is reacting to something, and the child gave a deliberate signal. That isn't something we ignore, especially not in a custody hearing. Greg opened his mouth to protest, but the judge held up a hand. Sit down. Greg obeyed, reluctantly. His jaw tightened. Sarah leaned closer to Lily, whispering something no one else could hear. Lily nodded faintly and wrapped her arm around Shadow's neck. Her breathing had slowed again, but her fingers still trembled slightly. The judge signaled the bailiff to come forward. Take the dog and the child to the side room, please. Let's give her a moment to decompress. Lily's heart jumped. She didn't want to leave her mom, not now, but the bailiff knelt beside her and smiled gently. Don't worry, sweetheart, he said softly, just stepping out for a few minutes. You can bring Shadow with you. Lily looked at her mom, then at the judge. She slowly stood, keeping a tight grip on the leash. Shadow moved in perfect step with her, always positioned between her and her father. He didn't look away from Greg until they were completely out of the room. As the door closed behind them, a heavy silence filled the space. Sarah broke it. She's not afraid of me. She's terrified of him. I've been trying to protect her since the day he left. Greg laughed again, this time more forcefully. You're unbelievable. Making me out to be the villain here. The girl's scared, because you're poisoning her mind against me. Sarah's lawyer interrupted. Your Honor, we are more than willing to provide recordings from Lily's therapy sessions. They show clear signs of emotional trauma linked to interactions with her father, and the service dog's reaction today. That speaks louder than words. The judge didn't respond immediately. He flipped through a folder on his desk, pulled out a document, and skimmed it silently. The tension was thick. No one spoke. Meanwhile, in the side room, Lily sat on a cushioned bench with Shadow's head resting in her lap. A child advocate joined her with a clipboard, but she didn't ask questions right away. She just sat quietly, letting Lily breathe. After a few minutes, Lily spoke on her own. He lies in front of people, she whispered, eyes still focused on Shadow's ears. He says nice things when there's others around, but when he's mad, he yells really close to my face. One time he threw my tablet across the room. The woman beside her nodded slowly. Thank you for telling me. You don't have to be scared anymore. Okay. Lily just gave a small nod. Shadow knows when it's bad. I didn't think I'd have to do the signal in front of everyone. You did exactly the right thing, the woman said. You were very brave. Back in the courtroom, Sarah had tears in her eyes, but she wasn't crying, not anymore. She looked stronger now, like someone who had been trying to be heard for far too long. The judge finally closed the folder and leaned back. Until further evaluation, I'm suspending Mr. Harper's unsupervised visitation rights. A court specialist will review Lily's behavioral patterns, including her interactions with both parents. Greg shot up. You've got to be kidding me. You're taking a dog's reaction as legal evidence. The judge slammed his gavel once. Sit down, Mr. Harper. This isn't about a dog. It's about a child showing clear signs of fear and a father ignoring it. Greg sat back down, furious, as murmurs filled the courtroom again. For the first time in weeks, Sarah allowed herself a deep breath. Her daughter had spoken without saying a word. The courtroom slowly settled back into a tense silence after the judge's ruling. Sarah sat stiffly, clutching Lily's hand. For the first time, she felt a flicker of hope that her daughter's silent fear had finally been recognized. But Greg's glare burned into them like ice dot as the hearing paused for a recess. Reporters and courtroom staff whispered about the unusual scene, the service, dog's protective stance, and the girl's secret gesture that had frozen everyone in place. Outside, the air was thick with nervous energy. Sarah knelt down next to Lily and wrapped her arms around her daughter's small frame. You did really well in there, Sarah said softly, brushing strands of hair from Lily's face. Shadow kept you safe. Lily looked up with tired eyes. I just wanted someone to know. Sarah nodded, fighting back tears. And they're starting to listen. The door opened, and a woman in a sharp suit stepped inside. I'm Dr. Meredith Clark, the child psychologist assigned to evaluate Lily. She introduced herself with a gentle smile. I'm here to talk with you, Lily, if that's okay. Lily glanced at Shadow, who rested his head on her lap, and then nodded slowly. She trusted Shadow, and if he was calm, maybe she could be too. Dr. Clark sat beside her, speaking softly. Sometimes, when people fight, kids get stuck in the middle. It's not your fault. Can you tell me what makes you feel safe? Lily's fingers twitched, and she glanced toward the door, as if expecting someone, her father, maybe to appear at any moment. Shadow, she said simply. He knows when I'm scared. Dr. Clark nodded. That's wonderful. Dogs can sense feelings we don't always show. Do you have a secret way to tell him when you're scared? Lily's small hand slipped into Shadow's fur, and she made the curved C gesture again, quiet and subtle. That's very brave of you, Dr. Clark said. We're going to help make sure you're safe and heard. Meanwhile, back in the main courtroom, Greg met with his lawyer, his expression dark and tense. This dog is ruining everything, he muttered. If we can't discredit this so-called signal, we have to find something else. His lawyer frowned. We could try to argue that the dog's behavior was staged, or that Lily's anxiety is being exaggerated. Greg slammed his fist on the table. No one believes me anymore. They think I'm the bad guy. I need to fix this. Hours later, the courtroom reconvened. The judge called for calm as the next witness was sworn in, Lily's school counselor, Mrs. Patel. Mrs. Patel's voice trembled slightly as she spoke. Lily has confided in me before. She's afraid to be alone sometimes. She mentioned that her father's yelling scares her, and that she feels better when Shadow is with her. Greg's face tightened. That's hearsay. The judge held up a hand. The counselor's testimony is relevant to the child's welfare. Sarah's lawyer nodded, then asked Mrs. Patel about any signs of physical harm. No, she said carefully, but Lily has shown signs of emotional distress, nightmares, withdrawal from friends, and increased anxiety. The judge exchanged a glance with Sarah's lawyer. This court will take all this into account. Later, during a break, Sarah found Lily near the courthouse garden, sitting on a bench with Shadow lying beside her. "Did you like Dr. Clark?" Sarah asked softly. Lily nodded but looked down at the ground. "I just want to be normal." Sarah pulled her into a hug. "You are normal, and you're the strongest girl I know." As they embraced, Shadow rested his head on Lily's knee, eyes vigilant but calm. For the first time in weeks, Lily felt a small flicker of peace. But the battle was far from over. Greg's next move was unpredictable and would test everything Lily, Sarah, and Shadow had endured. The courtroom buzzed with murmurs as the afternoon session began. Greg's usual confident smirk had faded, replaced by a restless energy that unsettled everyone watching. He knew the tide was turning, and he was desperate to regain control. Sarah sat quietly, holding Lily's hand tightly. Shadow rested beside her, alert but calm, his presence a steady comfort. Suddenly, the judge called a surprise witness, a man who had been absent from earlier hearings. "Mr. Daniels, please, take the stand," the bailiff announced. The courtroom's attention snapped to the man stepping forward. He was a neighbor who had lived next door to Greg and his current girlfriend for several years. Mr. Daniels cleared his throat. "I'm here because I've witnessed things I can no longer ignore." Greg's face tightened. "This is a witch hunt," he hissed under his breath. The judge raised a hand. "Mr. Daniels, please stick to the facts." Mr. Daniels nodded solemnly. "On several occasions, I've heard yelling coming from their house late at night. Once, I saw Greg throw something against the wall. It looked like a glass vase. His girlfriend had bruises on her arms." The courtroom gasped. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. Lily squeezed her mother's hand, looking up at Shadow, who was watching the witness carefully. Mr. Daniels continued. "I didn't come forward earlier because I didn't want to get involved. But seeing this little girl afraid in court, I had to speak." Greg's lawyer objected immediately. "Objection. This is hearsay and irrelevant." The judge considered but said, "The witness may continue. The court will weigh the evidence accordingly." Mr. Daniels took a deep breath. "I'm telling you what I saw. That's all." The judge called for a short recess, leaving the courtroom in stunned silence. Sarah's lawyer turned to her. This testimony could change everything. Outside the courtroom, Lily sat on a bench with Shadow. She was quiet, her mind swirling with questions and fears. "Do you think Daddy will get mad again?" she asked softly, fingers tracing Shadow's fur. Shadow nudged her hand gently, his eyes warm and steady. "I'm scared," Lily admitted. Sarah hugged her tightly. "We're going to protect you, baby, I promise." Back inside, the judge ordered an immediate psychological evaluation of Greg and scheduled home visits by Child Protective Services. Greg's expression darkened further. "You're all conspiring against me," he muttered as he was led away by court officers. The courtroom felt like it had shifted on its axis. Lily's secret signal to Shadow had set in motion a chain of events no one expected, events that were beginning to expose the truth. As the session ended, Sarah whispered to Lily, "You're so brave, sweetheart. Shadow and I will always be here for you." Lily smiled faintly, her hand brushing Shadow's ears. But deep down, she wondered what would happen next and if the worst was still to come. The courtroom was packed the next morning. Reporters filled every seat they could find, eager to cover the unfolding drama. The unusual scene with Lily's service dog had already made headlines, but what was about to happen would make the story unforgettable. Sarah sat quietly beside Lily, who held Shadow's leash tightly. The dog was calm, but his eyes remained watchful, as if ready for anything. Greg entered the courtroom, looking more unsteady than before. His confident mask was slipping. His lawyer whispered to him urgently as they took their seats. The judge called the court to order and motioned for the next witness. Suddenly, the prosecutor called Lily to the stand. The room fell silent. Lily's eyes darted nervously, but she walked up slowly, Shadow following just behind. The judge softened his voice. "Lily, do you feel safe here?" Lily's voice was barely audible. "No." The courtroom froze. Greg's face paled. The judge leaned forward. "Can you tell us why?" Lily looked down, then slowly made the secret hand gesture, the same C signal she had used before, but this time, more deliberate. She made sure Shadow saw it. Shadow immediately stood and moved in front of her. Protectively, a low growl escaped from the dog's throat, a sound that sent a chill through the room. Everyone froze. The judge's gavel paused mid-air. Greg swallowed, hard, breaking eye contact. "What does that mean, Lily?" the judge asked gently. "It means I'm scared of him," Lily said softly, looking at her father for the first time that day. Murmurs spread through the courtroom. Sarah's lawyer spoke up. "Your Honor, this is the exact signal Lily uses to warn Shadow when she feels unsafe. The dog's reaction proves her fear is real." Greg's lawyer jumped to object, but the judge silenced him with a glance. The judge nodded gravely. "The court recognizes the dog's behavior as a response to the child's distress. This will be noted for the evaluation." Greg's expression turned angry. "This is a sham, a circus." The bailiff moved closer to maintain order. the judge continued. We will reassess for a private session with the court-appointed psychologist to assess Lily's safety and emotional state. As Lily walked back to her seat, Shadow stayed close, eyes never leaving Greg. Outside the courtroom, reporters jostled for position, eager to capture any detail. Sarah held Lily's hand tightly. You were so brave today. Lily nodded, feeling exhausted but relieved. For the first time, she had spoken the truth without words. But with the help of her faithful companion, Shadow rested his head on her lap, as if saying, I'm here, always. The courtroom would never forget that moment, the silent gesture, and a dog's warning. Froze the entire room. After the intense courtroom session, Lily was taken to a quiet room for a private evaluation with Dr. Meredith Clark, the child psychologist assigned to her case. Shadow settled beside the chair, his eyes never leaving her. Dr. Clark's voice was soft and soothing. Lily, can you tell me more about how you feel when you're with your dad? Lily looked down, twisting the hem of her shirt. Sometimes, I'm scared he'll yell, or break things. I don't want to be scared. Tears welled up in her eyes. Shadow nudged her hand with his nose, grounding her. Dr. Clark nodded gently. That's very brave of you to say. Lily took a deep breath. I don't want to tell anyone because I thought it was my fault. But Shadow knows. When I make the C sign, he knows to watch out. Dr. Clark smiled warmly. That's a very smart dog. And a very smart girl. Meanwhile, Sarah sat in the courthouse lobby, her hands shaking. She had just spoken to the social worker assigned to the case. Sarah, we need to arrange a safe environment for Lily during this process, the social worker said firmly, and we need full cooperation from you. Sarah nodded. I just want my daughter to be safe. Back in the evaluation room, Lily's voice trembled as she shared more details how her dad's anger made her heart race, how Shadow's presence was the only thing that kept her calm. Dr. Clark jotted notes, clearly moved by the child's honesty. Later, the court-appointed specialist gave a preliminary report to the judge, recommending supervised visitation for Greg. Pending further investigation, Greg's lawyer argued fiercely against the restrictions, but the judge was firm. Outside the courtroom, reporters buzzed about the developing story, how a young girl's secret gesture and a loyal dog had changed the course of a custody battle. Sarah hugged Lily tightly as they left the courthouse. You're my hero, she whispered. Lily smiled faintly, tired but hopeful. Shadow walked beside them, ever watchful, ever loyal. The journey to healing was just beginning, but for the first time, Lily felt safe enough to take the first step. Weeks passed, and the custody case slowly unfolded. The court ordered psychological evaluations, home visits, and interviews painted a complicated picture. Sarah and Lily leaned on each other, growing stronger with every passing day. Shadow remained, by Lily's side, a constant protector and confidant. The courtroom was filled once again, the atmosphere tense but hopeful. Today, the judge was to hear the final testimonies before making a decision. Greg entered, his demeanor less confident than before. He avoided eye contact with Lily, who sat quietly with Sarah and Shadow. The first to speak was Dr. Meredith Clark. Her voice was calm but firm as she detailed her findings. Based on my sessions with Lily, it is clear she has experienced significant emotional distress related to her father's behavior. Her fear is genuine and supported by the dog's trained responses. I recommend continued supervised visitation to ensure Lily's safety. Sarah felt tears prick her eyes but stayed composed. Lily squeezed Shadow's paw, feeling the dog's reassuring strength. Next, the Child Protective Services caseworker described their home visits and observations. Mr. Harper's home environment raised concerns, including evidence of volatile behavior and lack of stability. We recommend restricting unsupervised visits until further notice. Greg's face hardened. His lawyer tried to counter, but the evidence was overwhelming. Then came Lily's moment. The judge called her to the stand once more, with Shadow sitting at her feet. Lily stood and looked directly at her father. I'm not scared of you anymore, she said softly but firmly. Greg's jaw clenched. The courtroom was silent. The judge nodded approvingly. That courage is admirable, Lily. Sarah's heart swelled with pride. Greg's lawyer protested, but the judge raised his gavel. Enough. The court must prioritize the child's welfare. The judge announced his decision. Full custody to Sarah, with Greg granted supervised visitation only. Gasps echoed throughout the room. Greg's face twisted in disbelief, but finally nodded stiffly. As the courtroom emptied, Sarah hugged Lily tightly. You did it, sweetheart. Lily smiled, feeling lighter than she had in months. Shadow wagged his tail, his mission complete. The silent hand gesture had saved her future. The courtroom was nearly empty as Sarah, Lily, and Shadow stepped outside into the bright afternoon sun. The air felt different now, lighter, filled with a promise of safety and healing. For months, the battle had been grueling, but today marked a new chapter. Sarah knelt beside Lily, brushing a stray lock of hair from her daughter's face. You were so brave, Lily. You helped us all see the truth. Lily smiled shyly, her hand resting on Shadow's strong neck. I didn't have to say much. Shadow knew. Shadow wagged his tail, his dark eyes warm and steady, as if understanding the weight of what had passed. At home, life began to change. No more hiding behind closed doors or fearing angry outbursts. Lily started therapy sessions, slowly learning to trust again. Sarah found a part-time job, and together they rebuilt their small world piece by piece. One afternoon, as the sun dipped low, Lily and Shadow played in the yard. She paused and made the secret C gesture, not because she was scared, but as a reminder of how far she'd come. Shadow barked happily, chasing after a fluttering butterfly. Neighbors waved and smiled, unaware of the silent signals and courtroom drama that had changed one young girl's life forever. Sarah watched from the porch, tears of relief streaming down her face. "We're safe now," she whispered. Lily looked up, her eyes bright with hope. Thanks to Shadow, the bond between the girl and her dog was unbreakably silent promise that no matter what, they would face the future together. And in the courtroom where the secret gesture had frozen everyone in place, Lily's story became a Bakuna reminder that sometimes, the smallest signals carry the loudest truths.